My parents bought their first house back in 1972. It was a fixer-upper, but they decided to move in right away and fix a few things as time and money permitted. Within a few days of moving in, the new neighbors came over to introduce themselves. They also let my parents know that the previous owners had moved out after a nasty divorce. They had lost their second baby from SIDS, and their relationship went downhill from there. My parents were horrified, more so because they were newly pregnant and couldn't imagine going through such a thing. They eventually pretty much forgot all about it. Life went on. They were in love with their new life and their new house. In preparation for the baby, they decided to wallpaper the nursery. Now, my dad told my mum there was no need in wallpapering the inside of the closet, but she insisted. She was kneeling down, scraping off old paint inside of the closet, when her eyes fell upon something that made her blood turn to ice. Written in crayon at about eye level for a kindergartner, in childish scrawl, was the words, "I killed the baby." When I was 14, my family and I fell on hard times. We got kicked out of our house and ended up in emergency housing. Basically, we went to charity who found us a house that we were able to rent for $100 a month, but only for 3 months. That summer, my mum and stepdad separated temporarily, and my 3 younger siblings would go to my stepdad's for a week or so, then come back to my mum and me. This house was pretty damn creepy. It started off with just that feeling, like something isn't quite right, that you might not be the only person in the room. In the day, that's all it was, the feeling that something was up, your instincts pricking at you. I tried to ignore it, but as soon as dusk arrived, stuff would start happening. More than once I would hear the static-filled music playing, but I could not find the source. It just filled the halls. I heard whispering and went to my 2 sisters' room. In the open closet, a pair of eyes looked at me and disappeared. My brother spent one night in the house and didn't come back. In my room, I could never win. On one wall, a mirror. When I flipped over to face the window, I watched 2 tall shadows pace in front of it. In my mother's room, the same shadow figures paced in circles around her room. One night, she and I sat up for 2 hours in her bed watching the shadows. She was strongly religious and didn't know what to make of it. During the time we lived there was a lunar eclipse. I'd never seen one before and was very excited for it. When I went out to look, every time, this terror took over me, and I couldn't stay outside. I couldn't explain it. When the moon was fully cloaked, I went outside, looked up, but my head suddenly snapped down, and to my left I could see the 3 tall shadows walking in between the 2 pine trees in the yard. Panicked, I ran back inside and into my room, flinging myself under the covers with my eyes shutly. But I listened to the pacing outside my bedroom window. 3 months of this, we moved out, and at the end of the summer into a new house. My mum and stepdad got back together, and I was with my younger siblings again. We all agreed the house on Acorn Street was messed up, and we still get chills when we drive by it, just to see. My wife is an RN, and she was on a float to another unit helping out. She normally worked as a cardiac, but she was helping out an Alzheimer's unit. She was saving a particular patient for last, as the patient was known to be a real pain. Very old, mean to everyone, and just generally tried to make the nurses miserable. She and the respiratory therapist got to the patient's room at the same time, so they decided to tackle her together. They got into the room, and the patient had smeared poop all over the walls of the bathroom and the hospital room. She was standing on the bed, screaming and jumping up and down on the bed. The 2 of them somehow got the patient calmed down and got the horrible mess cleaned up, and got their jobs done. She said it took them about 3 hours. They then went out and put a "Do Not Disturb" sign on the door to make sure the patient could stay calm and get some sleep. They were standing on one person on each side of the door herself and the respiratory therapist catching their breath and proclaiming how much that sucked when they spotted someone. A big farmer-looking guy wearing a John Deere baseball cap, overalls and a red plaid checkered shirt and big work boots coming down the hospital hallway. He looked kind of annoyed. He walked right past them into the patient's room, slamming the door open. My wife caught the door on the backswing and marched right into the room after him. The respiratory therapist was right behind her, planning on dragging him back out and giving him a piece of her mind. When she got into the room, he was not there. No sign of the person when she entered. She looked under the bed, she looked in the bathroom, she checked behind all the curtains, she even made sure the windows still would not open. There was no sign of the farmer at all. She then noticed the patient was sitting upright in the bed, just kind of staring into space. She asked, "Did you see someone come into the room?" The patient said yes. It was my daddy. He said he was coming to take me home tonight, and that you mean people won't be able to hurt me anymore. She responded with, "That's great. How about you get some rest before he comes to pick you up?" The patient then lay down and went to sleep. The patient died that night. My wife and the respiratory therapist swapped stories to make sure they weren't crazy. They both saw it.